Welcome everybody. This is Jay Early, and on this webinar I'm going to be covering self-therapy journey and introducing it to those of you who aren't familiar with it, and also doing a demonstration of stage 4 of self-therapy journey to show you how it actually works so that you can see what it actually does in this one stage of the process. There's actually 5 stages in self-therapy journey. Stage 4 is the one where you work through the fears that drive the pattern that you're working on. Okay, so here we are. There is a chat function here with this webinar, so feel free to type anything in that you'd like to communicate to me, and I will respond probably when I can. Okay, so let me tell you a little about myself. I have been a psychotherapist for about 40 years, and about 12 years ago, I guess it is, I discovered internal family systems therapy and found that it was such a powerful and effective form of therapy, and it was so easy to use and so effective that I just started using it with all my clients. And then since then I've helped with IFS trainings and written a number of books on it, including Self-Therapy, which has really been helpful to a lot of people because it's kind of a manual for IFS. And then I developed Self-Therapy Journey, which is a web application, an online tool that's based on IFS and also on the pattern system. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And in addition to that, practically the whole time I've been practicing as a therapist, I have been gradually developing the pattern system, which is a method of a way of understanding personality, which actually fits in beautifully with IFS because it talks about different patterns, which are types of hearts, and different wounds, which are types of burdens that exiles have. So anyway, that's a little of my background. And what I'd like to do now is do some screen sharing. This is actually what we're going to be looking at later on, but for now, I just thought I would pull that up to show you where we're going. But to start with, I'm going to do a little guided meditation with you to help you get into self, get into a calm, quiet place, and prepare for what we're going to be doing today. So I'd like everybody to close your eyes, go inside, get into a comfortable position for doing the guided meditation. Take a deep breath. And just begin by focusing your attention on the sensations in your belly. Whether you feel a fullness there, or a softness, or a gentleness, or you may even just notice the rise and fall of your belly with each breath. Whatever it is that you notice there, just keep your attention on the sensations in your belly. The sensations may change, but just keep your attention on your belly. And allow that to relax you, to take you deeper inside. And if you notice your mind wandering, just gently bring it back to the sensations in your belly. Allowing that to take you into a quieter, deeper place. And then notice if you have any any recurring thoughts that keep coming back, or any emotions or body sensations that might indicate that a part of you is activated right now. Maybe some concerns, some worries, anything like that probably indicates that there's a part activated. If there is, take a moment to just focus on that part, feel what it's feeling, maybe ask it what its concerns are. And when you've heard from the part, just reassure it that you're here. That whatever this part of you is concerned about, that got it activated, just let it know that you're here to help. It's not alone with whatever it's worried about. And see if maybe that helps the part just to relax a little and to allow you to be even more in a calm, grounded place, which is called self in IFS. And if you have another part activated, take a moment to be with that part too. And see if that part can also relax a little bit and allow you to be more in self. Okay, so gradually bring yourself back from the place you've been in. Gradually starting to move around a little. Open your eyes when you're ready and bring yourself back to the webinar. Okay, so okay, there's 13 people here now. Glad to have you. Welcome. So I'm going to just do a quick poll, or a number of polls. So let's see. So hopefully you've got a poll that's up now. So asking whether you're familiar with IFS. So please just click yes or no. And I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. And then, oh wait, I have to do start poll. There we go. Now you can see it. I'm still learning how to do this. So please click yes or no on this poll and vote. And now I'm going to end the poll. And 80% of you are familiar with IFS. Thank you. So now we're going to do a different poll. Are you familiar with the pattern system? So please click yes or no for that. Give you a couple seconds to do that. And I'm going to end the poll, and about half of you are familiar with the pattern system. Okay, thanks. One more poll. Now, look at this one. Are you familiar with self-therapy journey? That's STJ, but not using it, or are you actually using STJ, or are you not familiar with it? So please give me a vote on that one. And so let's see, 50% are familiar but not using it, 20% are using it, and 30% aren't familiar. Thank you. Okay, so that takes care of the polls. All right. So let's go back to screen sharing. And we'll go here. And I'm actually going to go to the home page. Oops, this is a little large, isn't it? You can't actually see all of the home page for Self-Therapy Journey the way I've got it. But that probably is easier for you to see. So with this on the screen, let me just tell you a little about Self-Therapy Journey. This is a web application where you can log on to work on any psychological issue you'd like to work on. I mean, or the many that we have. Here's a list of some of the many psychological issues that you can work on in Self-Therapy Journey. It's a way to take charge of your inner work, to work at your own convenience, in your own time, and in privacy. Or if you like to have connection with another person, you can also do it with a friend or find a buddy on our online community. It's more personal and more interactive than a self-help book, and it's a lot less expensive than therapy or counseling. Way less expensive. It's only $25 a month. You can take quizzes to learn what issues you might have that you might want to work on. It keeps track of all your work and creates reports for you, and you can print them out. You can do it on your own or as an adjunct to therapy that you're in, and you can use it to develop a complete psychological profile of yourself. You can do fairly deep IFS work on your issues. You can also do a homework practice to help practice changing your behavior. So there's really quite a bit to it. IFS is partially based on internal family systems therapy, which I was just talking about. I guess I won't say more about that. It's this wonderful form of therapy that is very powerful and also very user-friendly. It's very easy to get in touch with your parts for most people and to get to know them and talk to them. And then here's the pattern system, which is the other thing Self-Therapy Journey is based on. Here's an example of some dimensions, the interpersonal dimensions in the pattern system. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because this is not on the pattern system. I just wanted you to get a feel for that. So now, let's see. Oh, I know. One of the things I want to tell you, oops, sorry about that. I should have turned my phone off. One of the things that I wanted to tell you is that, let me come back to the chat here. Oh, there's a chat from somebody who says if the participant clicks on the screen, it goes mute. Just click to unmute. Thanks for letting us know. So the chat is open. If you have anything any comments you'd like to make or any questions you'd like to ask me, just type them in the chat box. I will be happy to respond whenever I get a moment as I'm presenting. So I'm not seeing any other chats right now, so I will go on. So let's see, we'll go back to here. Okay. So let's go to stage 4. So I'm going to illustrate this with the people-pleasing pattern. So if I choose uh, this is how one of the ways you can choose a new pattern to work on. There's a list of patterns. I'm just going to go right there because I know which one I want. I want the people-pleasing pattern. And I can click here to start working on it. So you can see here now that, as with all patterns, there's generally a 5-stage process. There's also a little intro stage before that. The first one where you get to know the pattern, your version of the pattern in detail, and get a report on that. The second one where you explore the childhood origins of your pattern. The third stage is in the pattern system associated with each pattern is a healthy capacity. And so that transforms the pattern. So for the people-pleasing pattern, it's transformed by the assertiveness capacity. That's in stage 3. And then stage 4 is where you actually get to work through the fears. You'll do some of that in working through the childhood origins of your pattern, but there's also an additional stage 4 where you get to work through the fears that drive your pattern in a particular practice situation. And so what you do, this is a little video of mine that explains stage 4 briefly. What I'm doing today is explaining it in a lot more detail. So on this page, what you're going to do, in preparation for, in stage 5, by the way, you're actually going to do a homework practice, or you're going to set up a homework practice. You're going to do it on your in your life. You're going to set up a homework practice where you practice being assertive instead of being a pleaser in a particular situation or type of situation that either you know is coming up in your life in the next week or 2, or you think is likely to come up. So here we are. So let's say the situation that I choose is a friend asks me to for them. Okay. So that sets up the practice situation. So that's what I'm going to do in stage 5. Now, what I'm going to do in stage 4, as you will see, is first. So you can. Here's the practice situation that I just typed in. Here's the. So when your people-pleasing pattern is, or when your people-pleasing part in this case, it's because that's a part in IFS that enacts that pattern, is activated in the practice situation you've chosen, which is somebody asks you to do something for them. How do you behave? So you'll fill in, I say yes, regardless. Okay. How would I like to be able to behave? I won't type it all in, but how I'd like to be able to behave is I'd like to decide whether it actually makes sense for me to say yes and say yes or no based on that. That would be the assertiveness capacity. And then what are the fears that my part has, and I can type in the main fears that my people-pleasing part has in that particular practice situation. Now, if I scroll down further, let me just, those of you who know self-therapy journey may realize that when you do stage 1, you're actually, you're working on the people-pleasing pattern, and you check off various underlying motivations for your people-pleasing pattern, either things you know intuitively are behind it, or things you got from doing the guided meditation in stage 1, where you got to know your people-pleasing part. Now, just for the purposes of this demonstration, I checked off all the motivations in stage 1. You won't be, of course, won't have all of them. So here, and whatever you check off in stage 1 actually also shows up in stages 2 and 4. So we're in stage 4 now. So here are all the different motivations that you might have checked off in stage 1. Motivations for being a pleaser. I'm trying to get attention, acceptance, caring, appreciation, or love by pleasing people. I'm trying to get appreciation or liking from others so I can feel good about myself. I'm afraid of being rejected if I don't please people, or if I assert myself, and so on. So you can see there's a whole long list of different underlying motivations. There's a lot of them. And you would, in stage one, you have just checked off the ones that were relevant for your people-pleasing pattern. And now that we're in stage four, you're interested not only the ones that are relevant for you, but the ones that are relevant for you in the practice situation you've chosen. My example practice situation is a friend asks you to do something for them. So in there, what are the things that came up? So one possibility is I'm afraid that if I don't please them, they'll reject me. So if that's the case, I can click here, and it will take me to a stage 4 step sequence working through rejection fear, which is actually working through the fear of being rejected, abandoned, not cared about, or dismissed. So here we are working, and this is a way of basically the part of you that does the people pleasing. Well, I didn't give it a name, so it just says your part, and I didn't give the opacity. If I had typed in names for those in stages 1 and 3, then those names would show up here. So basically what you're trying to do is, this part of you tends to please people because it's, in this case, it's afraid of being rejected if it doesn't. So, and that fear generally comes from childhood. And so the issue here is that you'd like to reassure that part that it doesn't have to worry about being rejected. Now, there's two possibilities. One is that indeed, since the fear comes from childhood and not from your current life, that your friends are not likely to reject them if you think about their requests and say, sorry, I can't do that right now, I'm too busy, or something like that. If that's the case, then the part's fear is unrealistic. But it might be a situation where maybe you have a friend that might be rejecting if you said no to their requests, and so in that case, the fear is realistic. And then there are 3 additional pages. Well, the first page here is where you decide whether the fear is realistic or not. It explains what that means, and you type in what the fears are, and the realistic fears and the unrealistic fears. And then there are 3 pages for dealing with realistic fears. One is it worth your while to assert yourself even if you might be rejected? Maybe you want to practice saying no and risking rejection. The next one is, well, could you handle the pain? If you said no to a friend and the friend got rejecting, could you handle it? See, when you were a child, you couldn't handle rejection very well. None of us could. But now as an adult, it's much more likely that you can. So here's a way to consider whether you can. And then here's another page that can help to, you can set up a plan basically for how you're going to handle the situation in such a way as to prevent yourself from being rejected, or to handle it if you do, to talk to the person who might get rejected. So these are all ways to handle it if the fear is realistic. Then we go to the meditation page, and now what you can do is you can actually click on here and listen to a guided meditation where you go inside, reconnect with your people-pleasing part experientially using IFS, and reassure the part that nothing bad's going to happen in this situation if it doesn't please people, or if something bad, if you do get rejected, you can handle it, or you have a plan for asserting yourself, or around it, or whatever it is. So your attempt here is to reassure the part that it doesn't have to please people in that situation. And so that's what that guided meditation is for. and then that finishes this step sequence. Okay, so we've now gone through one step sequence in stage 4. We return now to stage 4, and you have an option. Now we did working through rejection fear. You have an option here. See, there's a number of other things that are related to rejection fear. There's some related to harm fear. So you have the option of going through another step sequence, or if that feels like enough, you can move on to stage 5. But there's also some other possibilities in stage 4 I wanted to show you. Like here, if this is where you're pleasing people in order to try to get attention, acceptance, caring, appreciation, or love. But this is really equivalent to trying to deal with rejection fear. So this just takes you to that same place. So let me go back. Now here's another one. Here's a different one. Working. I'm afraid of being attacked by a part of myself if I don't please people, if I assert myself. So this is the fear of being attacked by an inner critic part of you. So in this case, if that's the thing, you're probably gonna want to actually work on the inner critic part that might attack you. And so here are links to, there are actually 5 patterns in self-therapy journey that are related to specific types of inner critics. You can click on any of those 5 and work on those inner critics and work on them enough that you're not likely to get attacked, and then you won't be so afraid of asserting yourself, or in this case saying no. So here's another one. So sometimes people, I want to take care of someone by pleasing. Sometimes people are pleasers because they're trying to take care of somebody. So that's where your people-pleasing pattern is really in service of another pattern, which is the caretaking pattern. In that case, you go to this page, and it encourages you to go off and work on your caretaking pattern. So notice this is the second time now that you're in the middle of working on the people-pleasing pattern, but you have the option of going off working on one of those inner critic patterns, or here working on the caretaking pattern. However, self-therapy journey is set up so that if you do that, it saves a restart point, so that when you're finished working with the other pattern, you can go to your dashboard, find the restart point, and it will bring you back here, wherever you left off, and you can continue working on stage 4 of the people-pleasing pattern. And then here's also something to help you create a plan for getting what you wanted to get from being a caretaker, or realizing that you don't really need to get it. So this is all part of reassuring yourself that it's okay not to be a pleaser in stage 4. So this is another way it might go. So there's various ways of going through stage 4, and you can do multiple ones of them. There's a couple more in service of... All right, now here's an inner critic one. Let me show you this. So this is with, if you are... I should probably go back, actually. Oops. Did I just lose my place? I did. Okay. Oh no, that's where we were. Okay. So we'll just go to that, return to the stage sequence, which should take us back to the stage 4 follow-up. Okay. So, where was that? I want to please someone in order to avoid triggering the part of me that's angry at the person. So basically what you've got here is, this is another way pleasing might be triggered. You've got an inner conflict between the pleaser part of you and the angry part. And in IFS that's called a polarization. So if you click here, we go to a little sequence to help you with that polarization. So first of all, you check to see if you really do have an angry part that is there. It might just be that your pleaser thinks that you're going to get angry when you're really not. But if you really do have an angry part that might really get triggered, then you can click here and work on your angry pattern. And if you don't, then you can go on. So in either case, when you've either worked through your anger, or at least worked on it, you don't have to actually work it through completely, or you've realized that your angry part is not all that problematic, then you go to the next page where it actually has a guided meditation for taking you through working on polarization using IFS, which basically means helping those two polarized parts that are at odds with each other to getting to know each of them, which you've probably already done, but then helping them to actually learn how to communicate with each other and begin to cooperate with each other so you can resolve the inner conflict. And that should then take care of that particular reason for not being able to having your part be afraid of asserting yourself in the practice situation. Okay, so we'll go back here, and I think there's one more I want to show you. Or are there any more? Oh, yeah. Here's another, sometimes what's underneath being a pleaser. One of my parents was so difficult and obnoxious that I went to the opposite extreme and became a pleaser. So that sometimes happens. So here you click here, and this is basically a page that kind of helps you process this. What was going on with your parent that made them so you so angry at them or so ashamed of them that you decide to become the opposite of them, and then you thinking that through and processing it and realizing that you don't have to become the opposite of a difficult and obnoxious parent. You can just not be that way. You can still be assertive without being difficult or obnoxious. So hopefully that will free up your part in stage 4. So you probably weren't going to need to go through all of these. I just went through all these different possibilities just to show you the various things that can happen in stage 4. Oh, I also should mention that rejection fear is just one of the fears that you can work through in stage 4. There's harm fear, there's failure fear, there's success fear, and there's a couple other fears. And they're all basically similar to rejection fear, so that's why I didn't go through them. So that's basically stage 4. So yeah, when you're finished with that, you move on to stage 5. And then there are a couple other pages that I didn't show you where if you have difficulty coming up with, maybe I should show them to you. Let me just go back. Don't have any time here. So if I go back to the working through page in stage 4, yeah, you can do that. Sorry, I just spaced out and forgot what I was saying. I was going to tell you something when I went back to stage 4, but I've now forgotten what it was. Oh well, I'll just go on. So that takes care of stage 4. You work through those, whichever fears you want to, and then you can move on to stage 5 and actually set up your homework practice where you get to practice being assertive when friends ask you to do things for them, which, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean saying no. I should just make it clear. Being assertive might mean saying yes if you really do want to do this thing for the friend and if you really have time to do it. So it doesn't always mean saying no. It means really thinking through whether it makes sense for you to say yes instead of just a pleaser just automatically says yes, where somebody who's assertive really thinks it through and decides whether it makes sense to say yes or no. Okay, so here we are back in the okay, now I've got some chats here. Is there a clump of rooms around an exile, or are there many exiles? There are many different types of exiles, and each type of exile corresponds to a wound. Let me just read more of this comment so I can answer it. Sometimes I find the exiles relatively benign, e.g. last week it was about falling off my bike when I was a kid, and some are quite mild. Oops. But other times the exile is quite traumatized. Are they all around one wound, that is reconfirming, or all different? They can be around different wounds. If you have many exiles, many of them probably have different wounds. Okay, so let's see. How do you determine if a part is a protector or an exile? Basically, what you do is you ask the part a protector question. So, for example, a protector question would be, what are you trying to get from me by doing your role? Or in this case, if it was pleasing, what are you trying to get from me by pleasing people? Or another protector question is, what are you afraid would happen if you didn't please people? So if you have a part that you're not sure if it's a protector or an exile, if you ask it one of those questions, if it gives you an answer, that means that it was a protector, because it could answer the protector question, because it has to do with the role that it's playing. If the part doesn't answer, or says, I don't know how to answer that, then it's probably an exile. So that's my answer to that. And now I've got another question. You're going to talk about if you have a difficult time narrowing your fear down to one specific fear. Was I going to do that? I'm not. This is not. This is not computing. Um, oh well. Anyway, thanks for trying, Bob. I guess that didn't work. But anyway, how funny that I spaced that out. Okay, so if anybody else has questions that you'd like to ask, fire them up on the chat. I'd be happy to respond. So in meanwhile, let me just go on talking about self-therapy journey. So one of the things that I've decided recently, actually, is that I want to make myself more available for personal connection to people who are using self-therapy journeys. So, of course, I'm doing these webinars, but also I'm now encouraging people when they enroll in self-therapy journey to give me their phone number or Skype name so that I can call them and get to know them when they get started. And I'm also available to help if any difficulties come up. So, and I'm also going to be offering coaching for people doing self-therapy journey. In general, for those of you who are already users of self-therapy journey, you're probably going to email me from me about this. For those of you who are not, feel free to try it out and know that you've got me. I'm there to help support you in whatever way is needed. Oh, and in the fall, I'm going to be offering some online courses in particular patterns that will also, for those who are doing self-therapy journey, will involve people in the course working self-therapy journey and getting help with it from me and from other people in the course. So all of that is going on. Okay, so I'm not getting any other chats. So let's see what else I wanted to say. By the way, especially since I've just covered stage 4 of self-therapy journey, if anybody has any questions about what I covered, please feel free to ask them. Go into the chat and ask them. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to mention is, with regard to self-therapy journey, is that stage 2, where you're dealing with the childhood origins of your patterns, involves sometimes deep work with young, wounded childhood parts, child parts, or even traumatized parts. And so for that reason, I mean, stage 2 is safe for most people, but not necessarily for everybody. And so we've set it up so that if you want to use stage 2, you need to be evaluated by a licensed therapist or counselor, and then okayed and given an access code for stage 2. So, and there are, or if you're already working with a therapist or counselor, they can okay you, or if you're not, you can come to me, or I have a list of other therapists who have volunteered to be therapist guides for self-therapy journey. You can contact one of them and get yourself evaluated by one of them so that you can get access to stage 2. It's not that hard to do, and it doesn't have to cost very much. So that's that. So I've got another question. Do you have a sense of what particular patterns you might want to focus on? Okay, well, let me show you how you can determine that. So let's go back to screen sharing. Where is the thing? Screen share. Should be there. Here it is. So now we're back here. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning. Here's the home page. So let's suppose you want to work on a new pattern. How do you determine what pattern to work on? I think that's the question. So you go to this page, and here's a video that describes, that tells you something about how to decide on a pattern. There's also another video over here that goes into more detail on that. But I'll just talk about it here. So there are 5 possibilities. One, you can take a quiz. And there are 2 main quizzes, the interpersonal quiz and the non-interpersonal quiz. So you can click on one of those, and you'll get a quiz here and a bunch of questions, which once you've answered all of them, you'll get you'll get scores on the different patterns, and you can, oops, let me go back here, new pattern, and then you can decide, you can click on one of those. So a quiz is one way. Another way is you can click here, and this is a list of all the patterns with short little things that somebody with that pattern might say. So you can just use that to choose a pattern to work on. Another option is that there's a list of capacities. You can start with a healthy capacity. So maybe you, instead of working on a pattern, maybe you want to develop assertiveness or aliveness or being centered or being able to challenge people or clarity. So you can click on one of those. That's another way to start. Another option is that you can look at a list of psychological issues. And this has a list of common psychological issues and shows you which pattern corresponds to each of those psychological issues. So that's another way to choose what to work on. And then finally, the last way, and somebody today just told me this was the best way for her. I mean, most people like to take a quiz, but not for everybody. You can browse the pattern system. You can click here, and there are 3 groups of dimensions. So you can go to the interpersonal dimension group, and here is a chart of all the interpersonal dimensions. So for example, we were just talking about people pleasing. That's in the power dimension. So in the power dimension, there are actually 4 patterns: people pleasing, passive aggressive. On this side, the soft patterns, and then in the hard patterns, there's the controlling pattern and the rebel pattern. And then there are healthy capacities. There's cooperation, assertiveness. Well, autonomy is not actually in yet. So there's cooperation and assertiveness. So that's one dimension. So what you can do is you can look through the chart, and then you can also browse the dimensions. So you could click on the power dimension, and here are links to these 4 patterns. There's also links to the 2 capacities, and there's also a little graphic that shows the pattern, the power dimension, a little more clearly. That these are the the 2 types of patterns on the soft side of the power dimension. These are the 2 types on the hard side, and these are the 2 corresponding healthy capacities: the cooperation on the relational side and the assertiveness on the self-support side. So, hope that answered those questions. So let's see. Let me go back to here and see if I've got any more questions. Okay. Can I use this approach to work on not knowing what to do with my life or what's important to me? Well, that would probably be in the accomplishment dimension. Let me just go see. So I'm going to go back here and go back and go back. So that would be in the inner critic dimension group. The accomplished dimension is here. You can see, and let me just look at the accomplishment dimension and see if it's relevant to what you're saying. So one of the things that could get in the way of your, well, the procrastination pattern might. That might get in the way of your knowing what to do with your life. Or you know what, I just realized what the other thing that might do that would be, let me just look at this chart. This is probably the best way to do it. Some of the inner critic dimensions, like the underminer, is an inner critic that undermines your confidence and your belief in yourself. And so that could get in the way of your knowing what to do with your life. Let me see if I'm answering the question. Then yeah, know what to do with my life or what's important to me. That could do it. That could, one of those inner critic patterns might get, or actually even the taskmaster, which is the opposite of prep, but like pushes you to work all the time. If you're too caught up in your taskmaster, you might just be so caught up with your nose to the grindstone working that you don't take the time to actually consider where your life is going, or what should be best for it. Interesting. I actually used to do life purpose coaching. That's really what you're talking about. I haven't yet put in so that's really the capacity you're talking about, which is life purpose, which is kind of related to the accomplishment dimension, but I don't actually have it in self-therapy journey yet. It might, those patterns might or might not actually do for what you want. There's there's 23 patterns and about the same number of capacities in self-therapy journey. Over time, I'm going to be adding more and more. So that's the answer to that question. Okay. Let me see. Okay, here's another question. Do exiles integrate so that you are no longer aware of them and they no longer influence your behavior, or do they become part of your team, so to speak? They exist but are purely beneficial. You know, it's sort of a combination of the two, I would say. Um, they generally are usually still there, and they're in their beneficial, healthy capacity. So an exile, might be curious or playful or serene or confident. Um, so they're still there, but often they're integrated in such a way that you aren't usually so aware of them. Or if they do influence your behavior, it's in a positive way. So I would say that they don't disappear, but when they're healed, which is what we're talking about, they basically no longer the burden that the exile carried no longer influences you. So if you had an exile who was feeling worthless, and you heal that part, then you'll no longer be influenced by feelings of worthlessness. But what the exile transforms into, which will be something positive, may influence you. Okay. Oh, I see. This question was, in the fall class, what patterns am I likely to become? I'm gonna definitely do, more likely, maybe Bonnie and I are probably going to do a fall class on eating issues, and I may also do one on people pleasing, or actually I might even do one on a combination of people pleasing, conflict avoiding, and caretaking, because they often, all three of those patterns go together. Um, but if there's interest, if there's enough interest, I would do one on any pattern that people want. So um, if those two, like another really popular one is procrastination, so there might be enough interest in that. So anyway, um, if the pattern that you'd like to be in a class on is not one of those, let me know, and if there's enough interest, I might do that. Okay, so I think I've handled all the questions that came through. So let's see what else I wanted to say. Um, so if you want to try self-therapy journey, um, you can sign up for the self-therapy journey free trial, which is a 14-day trial, and you get to use the full version of self-therapy journey for 2 weeks and see how it goes for you. And that way you'll know, you'll actually get to see how powerful it is and how easy it is to use, and then you can decide if you want to enroll. And if you do, it's only $25 a month. It's really very inexpensive compared to therapy or counseling. So if you're interested in that, you can click on that link, that banner, and sign up for the self-therapy journey free trial. Or if you prefer, you can move off of my display. So here's another one. If you just want to, if you're not ready to sign up for the free trial, you can just go to the self-therapy journey homepage and check it out and look around before you even decide if you want to sign up for the free trial. So that's another option. Okay. Let's see. Another thing I wanted to say is that there's a number of books that are relevant to the things I've been talking about. So if you're more of a reader, oh, I know, I wanted to actually show you this. So let me see. Oh, I'm not going to try to do that. So I'll just go from here. So one of the books is Self-Therapay, which is kind of like a manual for how to do IFS on yourself, or if you're a therapist, how to do it with your clients. So that's one book. There's another book called The Pattern System, which describes the pattern system. And then there's a third book called The Professional's Guide to Self-Therapy Journey. It's actually a booklet that is for therapists to tell you all about self-therapy journey. So those are three of the books that are available in our store. And there are many other books, guided meditations, recorded demonstration sessions, recorded courses, and all kinds of other things. So if you're interested in checking out the stuff in the store, you can click on this link and look over the store to your heart's content. Okay, so let me that. Okay, oh, I know, I want to go back to the chat. Here we go. Ah, okay, some more people. Is there a time limit to try the 14-day? I'm super busy for the next 2 weeks. Yeah, it's 14 days. That's the time limit. So if you're super busy for the next 2 weeks, don't sign up now. Wait until you're ready to try it out, and then sign up then. Oh no, if there's no time limit for signing up for the free trial. You can do that indefinitely. Anytime you can sign up for the free trial. It's just once you sign up, you have 14 days to use it. I just got your question. So just wait until you're ready to go and then sign up. Here's another question. Will I likely be doing stage 2 in the free trial, and would I need therapist approval? If you'd like to, that's up to you whether you'd like to do it, but certainly if you want to be able to explore the childhood origins of your patterns and work on healing your exiles in the free trial, then you would want access to stage 2. So yes, in that case you would need approval from a therapist or a counselor. So in that case, if you don't have one of your own, feel free to contact me or contact one of the other therapist guides to get you access to stage 2. Or if you prefer, you can just try out the other stages, and if that may give you enough of a sense of whether you actually want to enroll or not. But if you'd like to actually try stage 2 in order to determine whether you want to enroll, then yeah, you should get an access code for stage 2. And that doesn't take too long, and doesn't cost too much. For most people anyway. Okay. So, it's interesting. I was able to cover this faster than I expected. I thought this was going to be an hour and a half, but it looks like it's going to be closer to an hour. So, one last chance. If anybody's got a question, type it in the chat box and send it off to me, and I'll be happy to answer it. And if I don't get a question in the next few seconds, I will figure that we are done for today. I will be doing, I'm going to be doing webinars like this mostly every week or every other week. And I'm thinking I'll probably alternate. You know, this one was focused on self-therapy journey. The one next week is going to be focused on a particular pattern, in this case, the people-pleasing pattern. And I'll show how you would work on that using self-therapy journey, but it won't be just about self-therapy journey. It will be about the people-pleasing pattern in general and how to understand it, how to work on it using IFS, and so on. And so as I go on and do these webinars, generally they'll probably be every other week there'll be one focused on some aspect of self-therapy journey, and then in between weeks there'll be one focused on a particular pattern, or in some cases a particular psychological issue, or perhaps a dimension from the pattern system. Okay, now I've got another question. What if an exile or exiles had been around so long Since like the womb, yeah, some of them are, you don't know what it feels like not to be contaminated by it, not to be dominated by it, such as abandonment fear. Well, that's pretty common, actually. Many of our exiles are around from very early in childhood, and so we don't know often what it's like not to be dominated by them. But that's okay. You don't have to. You can just um, you can just work on the exile directly and um, witness its fears, witness what happened to it in childhood to cause it to have the burden that it's carrying, such as abandonment fear, and then you can heal it. You don't actually have to know what it's like not to be dominated by that. So that's not a problem. Okay, and another question. How can I approach a relative who needs STJ, I think, but doesn't know it? Interesting question. Of course, I don't know your relative, so it really depends on the person. But you might just talk to them about whatever the issue is that they have that you think means that they could benefit from this. Hopefully it's an issue that they're aware that they have. If it's not, you're probably not going to get too far. But if it's something that they're aware of, that they like to change, then it may not be too difficult. If it's an issue um, that you're aware of but they don't even know about, you could still do it, but you'd have to be very careful about how you approach them. You'd actually have to say, I've noticed that you act such and such a way in certain situation, in this situation, or you seem to feel this way in these situations, and I wonder if that's working for you, and if you might want to change that. And if they say yes, then you could say, well, I know of this thing that might help. And so if they're interested, you can just send them to the Self-Therapy Journey homepage and they can look around. Or if they're aware of a particular issue that they'd like help with, well, of course, you can always, let me actually do this. Let me go to the homepage. No, that's not it. Is this it? Nope, that's not it. Sorry about this, I got a little lost. Oh, there we go. All right. No, that's not what I wanted to have up. Try screen share. Oops. Let's try screen share again here. Okay. Well, this is probably it. All right, let's go back to the home page. Let me just check. There you go. Now you can see the home page. Okay, good. That's what I want. So here's the home page for Self-Therapy Journey. And you can see that there's a list of psychological issues here that somebody might want to work on. So if their issue is here, like suppose they tend to be dependent, they can click on this. That takes them here to description of the dependent pattern, and this shows it this way because I'm logged in. That's not actually a good illustration. But anyway, there's a description of each pattern and the capacity that resolves it, so they can look through here, they can read about the self-support capacity that resolves dependence, and so on, so that they can read through and just look around and see if it appeals to them. I think that's the best thing I can say there. Okay. Here's another comment. STJ, thank you, by the way, for all these questions and comments. This is great. I really appreciate it. STJ makes issues seem relatively simple. Is it really true that people stay stuck for a long time because of relatively simple issues? That seems very sad. Well, yes and no. Some issues are relatively simple. Some of them are relatively complex. For example, when you're working on a particular issue, like let's suppose, oops, that's not the right first thing. Let's suppose I wanted to explore the dependent pattern, and I click here, but I'm not going to try to do that. That's going to be too hard to show you, but let me just talk about it. As you're working on one pattern, you may discover that in order to actually resolve that pattern, you actually have to resolve some other patterns that are colluding with that pattern or other patterns that are in conflict with it. So there could be a whole cluster of patterns that are contributing to a particular issue. So it's actually not that simple in many cases. But nevertheless, self-therapy journey will help you determine if it isn't simple, if there are complexity. It'll help you determine what the various patterns are that you need to work on in order to resolve an issue. And you also might have, in fact most people do have more than one wound or exile that needs to be healed. Even to really just deal with one pattern, you might have to heal 2 or 3 different wounds. And so, no, it's not simple. Most of these issues are, many of these issues are complex. Some of them are fairly simple. It varies. But the issue about people being stuck is not so much about whether an issue is simple, but about how deep it goes and how much pain and trauma is behind it. If you've got even if it's a simple issue, if you have a lot of pain and trauma in an exile, then there's going to be a lot of protector parts that are trying to keep you from getting to that exile. And therefore, the work will not be simple and easy, even if at a conceptual level it's straightforward. So that's really more the issue. Is not so much as it's simple, but is there a lot of deep pain that has to be healed? Okay, I hope I answered your question. I'm interested in doing STJ. I would also love your help in finding an IFS therapist. I'd be happy to help you. Please contact me and I can help you find an IFS therapist as well. Okay. Well, maybe I should also mention if any of you want to use STJ and you don't want to work with, you don't want a therapist, but you'd like a little help with STJ. If it's very simple help, you can just call me. If it's a little more complex help, I offer a self-therapy journey coaching, which I do charge for. I mean, if you just need a little bit of help for a few minutes, I'll just do that. There's no charge for that. But you can get more extensive coaching from me, or I also have a couple of coaching programs where you can meet with a group of 5 people for an hour of coaching, or also possibly meet with me for a half-hour of coaching. So there's a couple of coaching programs that I've just put up, and I'm just now collecting people who are interested in those. So if you want a little more than just short pieces of help, you might want to sign up for one of those coaching programs. And of course you can cancel at any point. Just like with STJ, even if you're paying $25 a month, you can cancel at any point. Okay. So, I think, unless there are any other questions, I think that's probably it. So, thanks for tuning in, all of you who did. And those of you who asked questions and made comments, thanks for doing that. And I hope to run into some of you again, either talk to you when you start self-therapy journey, or another one of these webinars, or um, one of my courses. There's all kinds of possibilities. So thanks everybody, and goodbye for today.